The world of sports, a movie genre that just cannot go without being talked about. We obviously do have some great ones. We do have some that are not necessarily as great. So let's go ahead and talk about me and Ryan's top 3 sports movies of all time. So before we do end up getting started, I did want to go ahead and talk about a couple runner-ups that were very high on my list. Since we're only doing the top 3, they just didn't make it. So the first one is Moneyball. I love that movie as well, but unfortunately it just wasn't high enough for me to be able to put it in my top 3. I also loved Rocky, a very original movie, especially with Stallone. Stallone's an absolutely fantastic character. You can't really go wrong with any of the Rocky movies.
Don't call me Rocky, it's Rocky.
But the other one that was right on the edge is Remember the Titans. And I completely would not argue if you guys were to put that in your top 3. But here's my top 3, and here's why. And coming in at number 3 for me, we have Glory Road. This is one of my favorite movies of all time just because of the fact that it is based on a true story, and it tells such a phenomenal story. This was the story of a coach, Coach Haskins, who was on the downhill slope of his career.
Cool. That little boy loves that gate. I'm going to leave him right there.
And he decided to take a job as a college basketball coach, a Division I college basketball coach. But of course, it did come with its issues as well. With that being said, the college that he did end up going to wasn't necessarily the greatest college, but he takes a bunch of kids that really didn't feel like they were very special. He takes them and shows them exactly why they are special and pushes them to the very, very edge. Ends up leading to a 1966 NCAA basketball championship. And I feel like this is a perfect casting for a guy like Josh Lucas. He had that southern voice that not a lot of people took him very serious in the recruiting process. We saw at the very beginning when he went to that combine, not very many people wanted him, so he ended up taking it upon himself and ended up getting a team of all black players, the first time in NCAA history, breaking that mold, and they end up to go all the way to the NCAA championship and win it. He found the few players that truly did want to play for him, and he made the most out of it. A lot of these kids weren't even planning on going to college, and the fact that Haskins ended up giving him a full chance to not only go to college, but to actually succeed in college and to be able to play college ball and then still win a championship. Yeah, this has to be number 3 for me.
All right, you guys. First, we're going to start off with 3 honorable mentions. Now, first, I did just want to go ahead and address that any of these honorable mentions were definitely good enough to make it into somebody's top 3. So if they are not in mine, but they are in yours, I would deeply respect that, because these are movies that I 100% would have put on there if it weren't for some of the ones that were above it. I did just want to go ahead and put that out there. So our first honorable mention is going to be Moneyball with Brad Pitt. I love the idea of how much like money and stuff is involved in baseball, and just like kind of how you can like finesse the system to kind of get a better team with cheaper players, basically getting quality over like kind of like a money thing. So that is very interesting to me. My other honorable mention is going to be Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell. It's one of the funniest sports movies I've ever seen, and I always get a kick out of it whenever I watch it. Our third and final honorable mention is going to be The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock and Quentin Aaron. It is a very sad tale. The only reason I did not put it in there is just because I look for some of these movies, I do look for a little bit more humor than kind of sadness, but it is a really big uplift. So that is going to kind of be my honorable mentions. Kicking it off with number 3, we are going to have The Sandlot. It is going to be a 1993 baseball film about a bunch of kids that play baseball in the backyard. I just love, like, baseball is not really my sport, but I do find it really interesting that a bunch of kids, you know, they idolize this really, really big baseball player who a lot of people consider to be the greatest. It's about this kid who just wants to fit in, so he plays baseball. Like, he has a really big interest in baseball, but he goes out and plays with a group of friends who he just met in this new town that he's in. And when they lose a baseball, his alternative is to grab a ball that was signed by Babe Ruth, and he ends up losing the ball into the fence with the monster dog, and then everybody kind of gives him crap for it, and then he doesn't really realize who Babe Ruth, the Great Bambino.
The Great Bambino!
And to me, like, if it can, a group of kids who play baseball and have an idolization for somebody like that can get me interested into a movie about a sport that I personally don't really care for, to me, that just kind of speaks volume, and I really love this film, you guys.
And coming in at number 2, we have The Blind Side. The Blind Side is personally one of my favorite movies of all time as well. The Blind Side is one of those movies that me and my mom, we end up watching all the time. My mom absolutely loves Sandra Bullock, and really, how could you not in this movie? She plays this role absolutely perfect as a mom and as basically like an adopted mother to Michael, and it's fantastic to watch. She starts off very, very hesitant in this movie, and how she starts off very hesitant to take in Michael, and then all of a sudden, as soon as she does, she loves him and she treats him as if he is her own, and it is just absolutely a beautiful movie. From start to finish, this movie is perfect. The way that Sandra does also end up standing up for Michael, especially when they are out on the football field.
You protect his blinds.
When she comes out on the practice field, when she texts the coach during the games and tells him exactly what plays to run, and even talks to the people that are snickering out in the stands. Sandra Bullock does a really good job of showing her inner mother in that movie and just how big of a heart that she has. She takes this kid that is in a very, very tough scene, especially at the point in his life where his parental situation was not necessarily the best, and she gave him a loving home. She gave him all of the support that he needs. This was the first time that Michael really had a chance to buy clothes, and Sandra did that for him. And it just truly says so much about Sandra and who she truly is. Another thing that I loved was how he looked over the fact of SJ and Collins like they were truly his real brother and sister, which was absolutely fantastic.
Here at left tackle on the weak side.
Especially from the scene that is very disturbing where SJ and him end up getting into the car accident. Still, even then, you can just see just how much Michael cares about this family that ended up taking him in, and it's a really great movie from start to finish. It gets you teared up no matter who you really are. It's a fantastic movie. I love this one. And
kicking it off at number 2, we have Happy Gilmore, a 1996 film with Adam Sandler. And this movie always gives me a laugh no matter what. I just love the idea of this guy who really just wants to play hockey, and he enters to play in tournaments for golf, and he ends up, doing little putts like it's a hockey puck and stuff like that. I love all the side characters into it. I think in general, the dynamic that Adam Sandler has with the supporting cast of characters that play with him, I really do believe is a really good tale. To me, Happy Gilmore is just a fake hockey movie, but it's golf.
Happy Gilmore from 9 feet.
And he's just goofy in a sport that's supposed to be very quiet, very, kind of serious and competitive. He just takes it as a joke, and he's just naturally good at it. And then all the people that are actually like real golfers are really upset about it, and he ends up winning the yellow jacket. For whatever reason, that just kind of strikes an interest in me. And Adam Sandler, he just knocks out the role of Happy. It's unbelievable.
Coming in at number 1 for me, this one was honestly pretty easy. We've got Coach Carter. I absolutely adore this movie with my whole heart. It does star Samuel L. Jackson, an absolutely electric actor. He brings a team that comes from an absolutely abysmal neighborhood full of drugs, crime, and who knows what else. A lot of people that ended up not going to school, ended up not going to college, ended up dropping out of high school, and doing a lot of things when it comes to the crime scene, and ends up being in prison, to turning them into respectful men, and truly shows them what it's like. One of the greatest character stories that I've seen in a long time is Timo in that movie. If you go ahead and watch it, in the very first practice, Timo is so disrespectful to Coach Carter, and that's just the way that he knew. That was just the natural way that he knew, and Coach Carter ended up kicking him off the team and did not care about what he had to say about it. Then Timo ends up coming back onto the team to try to get out of the outside scene that he's in, and Coach Carter ends up making him into a very respectable man, and ends up getting him out of a really bad scene. Ends up turning a lot of the things around that Timo was not in a good space for, ends up turning that completely around. And of course, this is a very star-studded movie with Samuel L. Jackson, Channing Tatum, as we all know, another really great actor, and even Antoine Tanner, who plays Skills from one of my all-time favorite TV shows, One Tree Hill. This had a bunch of stars in it, and it truly showed that a lot of these guys were super young, but they did a great job. And one of the things that I loved absolutely most about this movie is that they didn't win. I know that sounds crazy, but the thing is a lot of these sports movies, they're very predictable, and the fact that they win at the buzzer, like you're rooting for this team of Coach Carter's all the way through, but the fact that they didn't win at the buzzer, that's what set this movie even farther apart from me, because it showed after they lost, Coach Carter ended up walking into the locker room and still talking about just how happy and proud he was of that team. And it was even that much more heartfelt. Obviously, if they would have won, it would have just been a lot of celebration, stuff like that. But instead, they go into the locker room. They're very serious, and they're all very upset. And Coach Carter just says, man, I'm just beyond proud of you guys. So I love that about this movie. And not to mention, when everybody was giving Coach Carter a hard time about the lockout, he did not care. He stood his ground and said, if these guys aren't going to get their grades up, if they're not going to go to school, then they are not going to play. I love that aspect. He did not care in any way, shape, or form what they had to say. And that was one of my favorite things.
Kicking it off at number 1, we have Coach Carter. Listen, Samuel L. Jackson nailed it. Every part of this movie I absolutely love. It is my favorite sports movie. I didn't even have to think twice. I knew number 2 and number 3 were kind of up in the air. Number 1 was never in question. I remember telling Austin I was going to be like, hey, Coach Carter's going to be my number 1. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I love basketball. I love the supporting cast of the thing. I love that you got a bunch of kids, where Coach Carter is trying to teach them that it's bigger than the game of basketball. And that's something I've always personally learned from the coaches I've had. And I love that how they can kind of come together, learn team basketball. Although they don't end up winning state, they still learn a lot of lessons that are bigger than the game of basketball, and they all came together. They all learned from one another, they respected one another. I think there were so many lessons that athletes today, like myself, could learn from it. It's a knock in the park. Everything Samuel L. Jackson does in the movie is 100% top tier, and I just gotta say, the movie itself, banger. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go check it out. That is going to do it for me. I'll take it back to Austin. Take care, you guys.
So that is going to be our top 3, ranking our top 3 sports movies of all time. Hopefully you guys did end up enjoying this video. And if you guys did, we're going to be putting out a lot more content. So make sure that you guys do like that video. Make sure you guys do subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell so you guys know anytime that we are posting. We're going to be trying to do shorts. We're going to be doing full-length videos. We're going to be doing live streams and podcasts. So make sure that you guys do tune in. There are so many great movies and stuff coming up in 2023. You definitely aren't going to want to miss what we have coming. So thank you guys so much. This is Austin from the Civil CinemAddicts. Have a good rest of your day.